Well, thank y'all for letting me come and tell y'all this story about God's mercy upon my life. And this happened to me on October the 1st of 2013. And it was a miracle, I mean, without a doubt. And the definition of a miracle is, in Webster's dictionary, it says an effect or extraordinary event in the physical world that surpasses all known human or natural powers and is attributed to a supernatural cause. And that's what happened to me. On September the 30th, it was a Monday, and it was a busy day around our house. I got up, Kathy and I, my wife, and I took our kiddos to school. At the time, they were going to London school, and off we went. And then I went to my office, and it's September 30th is a significant day for us in our business. We own BC Equipment Sales, and it's the end of our physical year, so we were excited about ending another year in business and thankful to God for the things that He had done for us. So we started off our meetings, our sales meetings and our managers' meetings with prayer like we often do, and thanking God for His blessings and that. And went about my day. And as usual, and little did I know the things that were coming my way. And one of the things that I've said is if you ever wondered what your last day on earth is like, you can't tell any difference. It seemed like a regular day to me. I went about the day, and at the end of the day, I was talking in my office with Sarah, one of our daughters, and she takes care of the marketing for our business. And it was about 4 o'clock, she said, 4:30 in the afternoon, and we sat there and talked about a deal that we were getting ready to do on some advertising, and little did either one of us know that just a few hours later she was going to be at the hospital with me. So this happened around midnight. I mean, we went home and had dinner, and I put the kids to bed, and I went and got in the bed myself and went to sleep. And my wife, Kathy, said just after midnight that she heard me making a noise, and she called out to me, and I didn't respond. And then she reached over and touched me, and I didn't respond. And she jumped up and turned the light on, and when she did, she said I was already blue in the face. Said my eyes were about that big around, and I was just gasping for air. And she called 911 and started trying to do CPR, which she didn't know how to do. And we live out on the west side of town off of McKenzie Road, if you're familiar with that area. And there's 2 fire stations out there, one on Rand Morgan Road and one at 5 Points. And so when both of the fire stations responded, and when they got there to the house, and they came in and started to work on me, one of the chief, or the captain, I guess it is, of the fire station, when we were talking to him several months later, he said when he came in the room, he said, I had never seen anybody that far gone, and us get him back. And they worked on me for about 20 or 25 minutes. They sat at the house doing all kinds of stuff, and they said they kept shocking me, and I was in AFib, and they said they'd shock me and it'd come back, my heart would, and they'd get a rhythm, and then it'd go out again, and they were putting adrenal shots and adrenaline in my heart and all kinds of stuff. And so when they left the house with me in the ambulance, they had 3 paramedics in the back of the ambulance working on me on the way to Spawn, and they said they lost me 2 more times between our house and Spawn, and when they took me through the door here at Spawn, I was dead again. And so they worked away on me, and my wife and my oldest daughter, Melanie, they kept telling the folks at the hospital to call Dr. Heath. He's a friend of ours, and he's my dad's cardiologist, and I didn't know he was soon to be mine. They kept saying to call Dr. Heath, and so when they called Dr. Heath, Dr. Alexander was the one on call for the practice, and he took the call, and he told them at Spawn, he said, we aren't the cardiac practice on rotation, it's another cardiologist. And they said, man, these people are screaming for you. And so he took the call, and he got up, and he came to the hospital, And when he got into the hospital, they'd been working on me for quite a while, and they told us that I didn't have, I was without air for over 15 minutes, and I didn't have any sustainable blood pressure for 45 minutes. And Dr. Alexander is the one that made the decision to do this therapeutic hypothermia on me, and which is a protocol that they normally don't do on cardiac patients. And he decided to freeze me, and this is a picture of me when I was in a coma for about 6 days, and this therapeutic hypothermia process, it takes about 24 to 36 hours to cool you. They lower your core body temperature to 33 degrees Celsius, and then they start to warm you back up. And so it was about 5 to 6 days later, I woke up and came to. And it's an amazing thing that the doctors were the ones that had told me this, that at the moment that a person dies, at the moment that you die, your body turns on itself, and it starts releasing these enzymes and hormones and everything, and so in defense of itself, all the different organs, they start turning on themselves. And so what they have found is if they can stop this, survivability increases, but then the problem becomes, the damage to the brain. And so I suffered from what they refer to as sudden cardiac death. For whatever reason, my heart lost its electrical connection. I've never had any heart problems. I don't have any blockages. Running's my hobby. I'm a pretty healthy guy. And so this happened. And Dr. Alexander was the one that told me the statistics on sudden cardiac death. Out of 100 people that it happens to, that 90 of them would die. And then the 10 that would make it, 9 of them would have debilitating organ damage or brain damage, and 1 would make it. And I don't know why God chose me, but I'm sure glad he did. And when the doctors and the nurses, they tell you that it's a miracle what happened to you, you believe it. I can remember the second week in the hospital, I would be there, and several doctors would come into the room, and they would stand around and look at me and talk medically, and they'd say, raise your left finger, and do this and do that, what day of the week is it, and different things. And they told us, they said, your case is going to be studied in medical textbooks for years to come. And I asked him, I said, so is that going to be like a singer, with a song, every time it plays, you get a little bit? They said, no. And here's the bill. But, it's an amazing thing, and we knew that it was a miracle. And my family and I, we got a videographer, and this was a couple of months later, and we went back to the hospital and to the paramedics, and we shot about 2.5 hours of video interviewing the doctors and nurses and paramedics and folks that worked on us, and so we have all of this video. And one of the things that we did, we narrowed it down and to an 11-minute video, and I use it when I go around preaching and telling this the Baptist version of this story. And we've done a lot of, that's one of the first memories I had when I came to in the hospital. I was telling everybody, I said, man, there's going to be a really good sermon here. I just got to get my thoughts, together and do it. And so we have. We've been to a lot of different places over the last couple of years and shared this story about God's mercy upon my life. And there's 3 main points to this story, and the first one is God's timing, about God's perfect timing. We hear so much about it in the Bible, and we see it in our lives, but sometimes we don't recognize it. And so then an event like this happens, and I could just go on and on about the timing, but let me just do a couple of the points to it. The number one, I told you we live out on the west side of town. There's 1 ambulance out there, 1 ambulance at 2 fire stations. This ambulance, it was coming back from town, And I live off of McKenzie Street, and it was going over the overpass on McKenzie when they got the call and had to go down to Calicote and turn around and come back. If it would have been 15 minutes sooner, there wouldn't have been an ambulance out in our area. And they got there in time. And then, I was told, one of the things that I do in my life is I fast, and I always fast at the end of our physical year for 2 days, a complete fast. I'm thanking God for the close of another year in our business, and then the beginning of, the next day for the beginning of a new year. I was 36 hours into a 48-hour fast, and I didn't have anything on my stomach. And so when I died, I didn't aspirate. They kept asking at the hospital. They said, he doesn't have anything in his stomach. And my wife told him, said he's fasting. And that's God's timing. So don't tell me fasting doesn't work. And then, just the fact that Dr. Alexander, so many of these, the paramedics and the doctors and stuff said that when they were working on me, all of the medical facts about death, they said we were right there. Dr. Kenyon was the ER doctor, and some of y'all might know him, great guy. And he told me, he said, everything they teach us in medical school, about death you have. And they just kept going and going and going, and that's God's timing. And then the other point is about the power of prayer. And we had people that prayed for us all over the place. Just word went out right away about what happened, and people started praying for us. And for the doctors and the nurses for wisdom and vision to make the right choices, and they did it. And so the power of prayer. God heard our needs, and He answered our prayers, and I'm thankful for that. And then the other point is being a willing vessel. That's what God needs. He needs us here on this earth to do His work, and we need to be willing vessels to do that. In 2 Kings 4, verses 1 and 7, we're told the story about a widow woman that was willing to be a vessel for God, and she prayed, and God heard her prayers and sent an answer to her prayers. And that's what I am. I'm a willing vessel for God. I tell people all the time, man, I'm a bit player in God's big world, but I'm willing to tell people about God, and I'm willing to share my testimony with others. And the hardest part about telling this story is, I went to heaven. And I experienced the perfect peace of heaven, and I'll never forget it. And when I was working on this sermon, one time I was praying, and I was asking God. I got family and there, my mom's there, and my grandmother, several others. And I didn't see him, but I experienced heaven, and I remember it, and I got to go wherever I wanted to go and see a lot of things. And I was talking to God, and I was asking Him that, being a human, why not this? And God told me, He said, it's not about what you saw, it's about what they saw. And what they saw was a dead guy get up and walk out of a hospital. He said, so why don't you go ask them how it changed their lives?
Amen.
And so then I understood how come I had the bit part in this, But, there's nothing like dying to give you a different perspective on living. I promise you. One of my hobbies is running, and I've run over 20 marathons, and I don't know how many half marathons, and I can remember being in the hospital, and some of them were telling me, and I got a defibrillator now. Right there's the 2 wires to my heart. I call it my miracle pad. Anytime I need a little faith, right there I'm touching the 2 wires to my heart. It's never done a thing. I've never had an issue at all with my heart. This is the only thing that's ever happened. And you know, it's been over 2 years ago, and I still go see Dr. Alexander every 6 months. And I go in there, and they do an echocardiogram and an EKG and all of the stuff, and shake their head. And one time, well, more than one time, I was in there, and Dr. Alexander have other doctors, and he would tell them, he said, this is why you always want to consider therapeutic hypothermia on cardiac patients. And I told him, I said, well, Doc, it's God and therapeutic hypothermia that works. And it is. But I told my family, I said, you know, on this anniversary from now on, I'm going to go back to the hospital, and I'm going to go run. And so in 2014, the first year, I went to the hospital, and I took off for a run down Ocean Drive, and I ran 6.5 miles, and the sun was coming up, and it was just a beautiful sunrise, and it was a cross. And I stopped, and I looked at it, and I run with my phone now because it has an app, and where my wife knows where I'm at. It shows a map and everything, but I didn't even think of taking a picture. And so this year, when I came up here and I went for a run, I took off, and I was coming this way, and this was right out in front of the church, right here on McGee Beach. And I was running along, and the sun came up, and I'm running down the seawall, and this is what God showed me. I couldn't believe it. I got off of the seawall, and I ran down right to the water's edge, and I stood there, and I looked at it. And I believe that this is God reminding me and showing me the things that He has done for me, and I don't know why. You know, I'm one of 7 billion people in this world. I'm nothing, but to God, I'm 1 in 7 billion people.
Amen.
But I took this picture, and we're having prints made, and we used a Bible verse, and that's right underneath it. And the Bible verse is Deuteronomy 4:9, and it says, "Watch yourself closely so that you don't forget